your understanding and help your work in whatever you are doing. Once again, I just want us to look at the usefulness of philosophy, how we went through yesterday. Some few things, the way we went through it yesterday. I'm very sure you are very much of understanding of the usefulness of philosophy, which we said the study of philosophy helps us to enhance our ability to solve problems, our communications skills, our persuasive powers, and our writing skills. Like we said yesterday, that the study of philosophy enhances a person's problem-solving capacities. When you come to this understanding, it will help you in every area of life. It will help you to synthesize a variety of views or perspectives into one unified whole. Not only that, it will help in your communication skills. Very, very important. Tools of self-expression. I'm very sure that in this class, if you're a timid person, if you don't know how to communicate before, you'll be able to have some understanding where your challenges are and how to handle it. For instance, skills in presenting ideas through a well-constructed systematic argument. That other fields either do not use or use less extensively. Philosophy helps us to express what is distinctive in our views. It enhances our ability to explain difficult material. Not only that, it helps us to eliminate ambiguities and vagueness from our writing and speech, like I've told you in the last class. Another thing I want you to understand here is persuasive powers. Philosophy provides training in the construction of clear formulations, good arguments, and appropriate examples. It thereby helps us to develop our ability to be convincing. We learn to build and defend our own views, to appreciate, compete, and consider our own views preferable to alternatives. Capacities can be developed not only through reading, but through writings too. It's of importance for you to come to this understanding in this class. It will indicate possibly why we consider our own views preferable to alternatives. These capacities can be developed not only through reading and writing in philosophy, but also through the philosophical dialogue, both within and outside the classroom. It is so much a part of a thorough philosophical education. One vital one I don't want you to forget is writing skills. Writing is taught intensively in many philosophy courses, and many regularly assigned philosophical texts are also excellent as literary essays. Philosophy teaches interpretive writing through its examination of challenging texts, comparative writing through emphasis on fairness to alternate positions, argumentative writing through developing students' ability to establish their own views, and descriptive writing through detailed portrayal of concrete examples. Come with me, understand this. Concrete examples serve as the anchors to which generalization must be retied. Structure and technique then are emphasized in philosophical writing. Originality is also encouraged, and students are generally urged to use their imagination to develop their own ideas. The general uses of philosophy just described are obviously of great academic value. It should be clear that the study of philosophy has intrinsic problems, but philosophy has further uses in deepening and education, both in college and in the many activities, professional and personal, that follow graduation. Two of these further uses are described below, that is, understanding other disciplines. Philosophy is indispensable for our ability to understand other disciplines. You must tend to have this understanding each time you are dealing with other disciplines. Why? Many important questions about a discipline, such as the nature of its concepts and relation to other disciplines, are philosophical in nature. Philosophy of science, for example, is needed to supplement the understanding of the world, the natural and social sciences that derives from scientific work itself. Philosophy of literature and philosophy of history are of similar value in understanding the humanities, and philosophy of art, aesthetics, is important in another value of philosophy in education is contribution to our capacity to frame hypotheses, to do research, and to put problems in manageable form. Philosophical thinking strongly emphasizes clear formulation of ideas and problems, selection of relevant data, and objective methods for assessing ideas and proposals are very vital. They are very key in sound method of research analysis. It also emphasizes development of a sense of the new directions suggested by new hypotheses and questions one encounters while doing research. Philosophers regularly build on both the successes and failures of their predecessors. Don't ever forget this. That is why research, when you are doing research, you have to study and look at other works other people have done. A person with a philosophical training can readily learn to do the same in any field. Ancient philosophy is a philosophy in antiquity or before the end of the Roman Empire. It usually refers to ancient Greek philosophy. It can also encompass various other intellectual traditions, such as Chinese philosophy, Indian philosophy. Asian philosophies are generally deeply rooted in religious traditions. According to Asian philosophies, have a comprehensive outlook as opposed to modern contemporary philosophies. So I want you to come to an understanding in this class, which you have to narrow methodologies and areas of focus when you are looking at contemporary philosophy. For example, in the Western tradition, Asian philosophy was developed primarily by Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Asian philosophy, however, also includes the pre-Socratic, Hellenistic philosophy, and Roman philosophy. Asian philosophy in the West is distinguished from medieval philosophy, which was largely influenced by Christianity and Islam. Asian philosophies from non-Western traditions, such as Chinese or Indian philosophy, often have wrong ethical or religious concerns that continue to be major parts of the traditions today. So that one will lead us to sources of knowledge as far as we concern Donald Ari, Lucy Chaser, Jacobs, and Christian K. Sorensen. According to them, the major sources of knowledge can be categorized under 5 headings. 1, experience. Number 2, authority. Number 3, deductive reasoning. Number 4, inductive reasoning. Why? Number 5, scientific approach. Now, I want you to listen attentively in this class. Sources of knowledge by experience is a familiar and well-used source of knowledge. By personal experience, you can find the answer to many of the questions you face. I hope you are following in this class. What I've said right now is that by personal experience, you can find the answer to many of the questions you face. Much wisdom passed from generation to generation is the result of experience. If people were not able to profit from experience, progress will be severely retarded. Part of the sources of knowledge by experience is why you are where you are today. And that's why some communities, some nations are where they are today. In fact, this ability to learn from experience is a prime characteristic of intelligent behavior. Very, very important. You have to come to this understanding. If you don't have this understanding, it's likely you'll be cheated. And when you come to this understanding, you will have the better part of whatsoever you need to do. So at this point, I want you to come to this understanding, this moment in this class, that you have a leadway by experience if you can utilize it maximally. The shortcoming of experience, therefore, is that you so frequently need to know things that you as an individual cannot do by experience. That's it. That is the difference. In fact, this ability to learn from experience is a prime characteristic of intelligent behavior. So number 2, authority. For things difficult or impossible to know, by personal experience, people frequently turn to an authority. That is, they seek higher knowledge from someone who has had experience with a problem or the challenge, or has some other source of expertise. People accept as truth the word of recognized authorities. I'm very sure in this class, in all your doings, why you are in this class could be because you are seeking for help. And then that's why you get into this class. By getting to come into this institution. So people accept as true the word of recognized authorities. So by so doing, that could be the reason why you are and where you are today. For example, we go to a physician with health questions, or to a stockbroker with questions about investments. The student can look up the accepted pronunciation of the word in the dictionary. A beginning teacher asks an experienced one for suggestions, and they tried a certain technique for teaching, reading because the teacher with experience suggests that it is effective. Authority is a quick and easy source of knowledge. However, as a source of knowledge, authority has shortcomings that you must consider, that you must be very careful about. First, authorities can be wrong. Maybe some of those things your parents or teachers or people in your environment has told you, as soon as you come to this point in your life, you discover that they were wrong. or by the means by which they were trying to pass the message across to you. People often claim to be experts in the field when they do not really have the knowledge to back up the claim. Secondly, you may find that authorities disagree among themselves on issues, indicating that their authority statements are often more personal opinion than fact. That one will lead us to deductive reasoning. Come with me. In ancient Greek philosophers made perhaps the first significant contribution to the development of a systematic approach for gaining knowledge. For example, Aristotle and his followers introduced the use of deductive reasoning, which can be described as a thinking process in which one proceeds from general to specific knowledge through a logical argument. An argument consists of a number of statements standing in relation to one another. The final statement is the conclusion, and the rest, called premises, offer supporting evidence. A major kind of deductive reasoning is the syllogism, and a syllogism consists of a major premise and a minor premise followed by a conclusion. Deductive reasoning, therefore, has its limitations. To arrive at a true conclusion, you must begin with true premises. The premise whereby you are standing from, you are, must be basically untruth to be true. The conclusion of a syllogism people already know and can point out new relationships as you proceed from the general to the specific. But it is not sufficient as useful in research because it provides a way to link theory and observation. Kindly take note. It lets researchers deduce from existing theory what phenomena they should observe. So deductions from theory can help build hypotheses, which are vital part of scientific theory. Let's come to inductive reasoning. As noted previously, the conclusions of deductive reasoning are truly only if the premises on which they are based are true. But how are you to know it if the premises are true? You can see the difference between deductive and inductive reasoning in the following examples. Deductive. Every mammal has lungs. All rabbits are mammals. Therefore, every rabbit has lungs. Inductive now. Every rabbit that has ever been observed has lungs. Therefore, every rabbit has lungs. Note that in deductive reasoning, you must know that the premises before you can reach a conclusion. But in inductive reasoning, you can understand this basis based on what the inductive conclusion will be. So, in inductive reasoning, you reach a conclusion by observing examples and generalizing from the example to the whole class or category. Why? To be absolutely certain of an inductive conclusion, the investigator must observe all examples. This is known as perfect induction under the Baconian system. It requires that the investigator examine every example of phenomenon. In the preceding example, to be absolutely sure that every rabbit has lungs, the investigator will have to have observations on all rabbits currently alive, as well as all past and future rabbits. Clearly, this is not visible. You generally must rely on imperfect induction based on what? Incomplete observation. I hope you are following. We're going to look at the scientific approach now. Safe use of induction often resulted in the accumulation of isolated knowledge and information that made little contribution to the advance. People found that many problems could not be solved by induction alone. Coming on this right now, in the 19th century, scholars began to integrate the most important aspects of the inductive and deductive methods into a new technique, namely the inductive deductive method or scientific approach. This approach differs from inductive reasoning in that it uses hypotheses. A hypothesis is a statement describing relationship among variables that is tentatively assumed to be true. It identifies observation to be made to investigate a question. The scientific approach is generally described as a method of acquiring knowledge in which investigations move inductively from their observations to hypotheses, and then deductively from the hypothesis to the logical implications of the hypothesis. Why is this so? They deduce the consequences that will follow if a hypothesized relationship were valid. Remember when we were talking about valid, and we're still going to look at that. If the deduced implications are compatible with the organized body of accepted knowledge of the organized researchers, of them further tests them by gathering empirical data on the basis of what evidence they accept or reject the hypothesis. The methods of acquiring knowledge can be broken down into 5 categories, each with its own strengths and weaknesses. One of the ways to add an example facts or using your emotion or using rational thought. Intuition involves believing what you feel true. The problem with relying on intuition is that our intuition can be wrong because they are driven by cognitive and motivational biases rather than logical reason or scientific evidence. So it is very, very important for you to come to an understanding on this matter. Why the strange behavior of your friend may lead you to think he or she is lying to you. It may just be that he or she is holding a bit of a gas or is preoccupied with some other issue that is irrelevant to you. So you just don't look at it that, okay, don't look at the facial expression of somebody and then you begin to come to a conclusion. It might not help. Another thing you have to consider is authority. Perhaps one of the most common methods of acquiring knowledge, as we are looking at the sources of knowledge, is through authority. This method involves accepting new ideas because some authority figure states that they are true. But wait a minute. These authorities include parents, the media, the doctors, priests, and other religious authorities, the government, and professors. While in an ideal world, we should be able to trust authority figures. History has taught us otherwise, and many instances of atrocities against humanity are consequence of people unquestioningly following authority. So, for example, in Salem witch trials or Nazi war crimes, so those ones are there. Rationalism. Rationalism involves using logic and reasoning to acquire new knowledge. Using these method premises as stated and logical rules are followed to arrive at a sound conclusions. For instance, if I'm given the premise that all swans are white, and the premise that this is a swan, then I can come to the rational conclusion that this one is white without actually seeing this one. So that one will lead us to empiricism. Empiricism involves acquiring knowledge through observation and experience. Once again, many of you may have believed that all swans are white because you have only ever seen white swans. For centuries, people believed that the world is flat because it happens to be flat, and which was not true. So that one will lead us to scientific method. The scientific method is a process of systematically collecting and evaluating evidence to test ideas and answer questions. Don't forget this. While scientists may use intuition, authority, rationalism, and empiricism to generate new ideas, they don't stop there. Scientists go a step further by using systematic empiricism to make careful observations under various control conditions. In order to do what? To test the ideas. Why? And why do they do that? Because they use rationalism to arrive at invalid conclusions. So, with that, you can look at the sources of this knowledge. That one will take us to the history of philosophy. The history of philosophy is shrouded in controversy. Come along with me in this class. The reason is that what is normally taught to students as the history of philosophy is actually the history of Western philosophy. But the history of philosophy is much more than the history of Western philosophy. Western philosophy is a genre among the many genres of philosophy. There is African philosophy. There's Oriental philosophy, which encompasses Chinese philosophy, Indian philosophy, Japanese, and others. So all these philosophies have their unique histories, which ought to be incorporated into the history of philosophy as taught in the colleges. The history of Western philosophy, therefore, is divided into three: ancient philosophy, medieval philosophy, modern philosophy. So looking at the contemporary philosophy, ancient philosophy, the history of ancient philosophy is subdivided into two: the pre-Socratic and Socratic periods. The pre-Socratic era is a period in the history of ancient philosophy before the emergence of Socrates. The Socratic era is the period in the history of ancient philosophy that spans from the emergence of Socrates to the emergence of the medieval period. The pre-Socratic philosophies, therefore, were called unstuck philosophers. They were generally looking for the substance that could explain this cosmos. The fourth was cosmocentric. That was at the time of Thales. Thales of Miletus heard that the cosmos has its source in water. He said to be the first recorded philosopher in Western history. But bear in mind that Thales himself said that he was educated in Egypt. That means philosophy emerged in the letters. It already flourished in Egypt. For Thales, everything is moist. Therefore, water must have been the cause of the universe. Thales heralded the theory of evolution by saying that human beings originated in the water. He held that humans must have existed in water in form of different from their present day form, as they couldn't have survived in water. Thales heard that the world was round, but flat like a disc. Anaximander reasoned that whatever that could be cause of the multitude of things in the cosmos must be unique. It must be indeterminate. Therefore, Anaximander postulated that the boundless, which is also called the apeiron, is the cause of all things. Anaximenes theorized that everything was made from air. For him, was the primary substance from which all things were made. Anaximander said that the multiple of things were made from air through the upward and downward movements of air. The upward movement of air he called rarefaction. Explaining rarefaction, Anaximenes said that when earth is heated, it becomes water. When water is heated, it becomes moisture. When it is further heated, it becomes air. Anaximenes called the downward movement of air condensation. When air is cooled, it becomes moist. When it is further cooled, it becomes water. When it's cooled further, it becomes the earth. So you can see all their theories. Even Pythagoras came up with his own understanding. Pythagoras said that everything was made of numbers. By numbers, he meant both numerals and geometric shapes like squares, triangles, rectangles, circles, cones, etc. So Pythagoras imagined these things to be real things instead of abstractions. The same way, Heraclitus of Ephesus believed that everything was in a state of flux. He reasoned that the cosmos was constantly becoming such. For Heraclitus, you cannot step on the same river twice, for fresh waters are ever flowing upon you. For Heraclitus, the constant process of change that characterized the cosmos is not chaotic. Rather, there is a hidden harmony of alien. He reacted to Heraclitus' theory of change as the essence of the universe. He argues that change is an illusion, but being is one. Parmenides propounds that nothing can come out of nothing. Nothing can really become, because everything is always something. Being is one and changeless. Parmenides founded a university called the Eleatic School. Empedocles provided 4 elements, which he called the root of all things. The 4 elements are air, water, fire, and earth. These elements are unalterable and indestructible. However, there are forces of law and strife which mix together and separate the elements. While love brings together the elements and mixes them to form things, strife separates them. The bringing together and the separation of the elements by the forces of love and strife account for what we call change. I hope you are coming along with me, seeing the contribution of many people regarding how the cosmos, how this thing came to be. Anaxagoras was born in the Greek city of Clazomenia around 510 BC. He was the first philosopher to introduce Western philosophy to Athens, like Socrates much later after him. The priestly elements in Athens made use were offset by his naturalistic philosophy, which rendered the gods redundant in the interpretation and authorship of the universe. This was a clear threat to their authority as they begin to see a contrary understanding concerning the matter of the creation and the universe. So it is of importance to know that the polarization of philosophy of Anaxagoras will mean the banishment of the gods from physics, politics in the psyche of Athenians. It will spell redundancy for priestly class. According to Anaxagoras, was accused of impiety, a crime which carried death sentence. Anaxagoras fled to Lampsacus to escape being killed. So Anaxagoras attempted a scientific explanation of the universe. He postulated that the world was originally made up of a mixture of particles which were indestructible. Change and the individualization were caused by the prepondence of certain ingredients in a particular mixture. He is famous for the saying, "There is everything in everything." Anaxagoras did not see change as a result of the individual properties of the particles, but as a result of higher concentration of a particle in a particular mixture. He differed with realm. Parmenides, who held that change was impossible. The account of this intelligence and order in the world, Anaxagoras introduces an extraneous what Hitler has done. In logic, we study rules that allow us to distinguish good, correct reasoning from bad, incorrect reasoning. So since there is a variety of different types of reasoning and methods with which to evaluate each of these types, plus various diverging views on what constitutes correct reasoning, there are many approaches to the logical enterprise. Therefore, we talk of logic, but also of logics. A logic is a set of rules and techniques for distinguishing good reasoning from bad. A logic must formulate premise standards for evaluating reasoning and develop methods for applying those standards to a particular instances. So basic notions in reasoning involves claims or statements, making them and backing them up with reasons, drawing out their consequences. Propositions are the things we claim, state, and assert. What do we mean by propositions in this class? Propositions are the kinds of things that can be true or false. They are expressed by declarative sentences. We use such sentences to make all sorts of assertions from routine matters of fact. For example, the earth revolves around the sun. The grand metaphysical thesis. Reality is an unchanging, featureless, unified absolute. To claims about morality, it is wrong to eat meat. So it is important to distinguish sentences in the declarative mood, which expresses proposition, from sentences in other moods, which do not. Interrogative sentences, for example, ask questions. Is it raining? And imperative sentences issue commands, don't drink kerosene. It makes no sense to ask whether these kinds of sentences express truths or falsehood. So they do not express propositions. We also distinguish propositions from the sentences that express them, because a single proposition can be expressed by different sentences. It is raining and es regnet. Both express the proposition that it is raining. One sentence does it in English, the other in German. Also, John loves Mary, and Mary is loved by John. Both expresses the sentence, the same proposition. So therefore, the fundamental unit of reasoning is the argument. And when we come in logic, by argument, we don't mean disagreement. A shouting match, rather we define the word, the time precisely. Argument, a set of propositions, one of which the conclusion is supposed to be supported by the others, the premises. If we are reasoning by making claims and backing them up with reason, then therefore the reasons given to support it are the argument's premise. If we are reasoning by drawing an inference from a set of statements, then the inference we draw is the conclusion of an argument, and the statements, therefore, from which it is drawn are the premises. So we'll be concluding from here. We include the parenthetical hedge, supposed to be, in the definition to make room for bad arguments. A bad argument, very roughly speaking, is one where the premises fail to support the conclusion. A good argument, premises actually do support conclusion. So we'll be meeting at the next class when we'll be concluding this lecture. I want you to review and go through all what we have learned today, see through them, and then we'll be able to look at other matters as we come. I think at this point we have gone through, we'll be looking at logic vocabulary, valid and invalid deductive and inductive arguments, fallacies, definitions and types, argument forms, and law of thought as we come in the next class. Please go through your notes, and remember, you'll be having a short quiz test. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful time. See you. See you in the next class. God be with you.